So we go to Sean Mooney with Demolition, all three members, so Axe, Smash, and Crush. And, they talk about, their whole game plan of, hey, any two of the three can defend it, Freebird's rule here, in which two will defend. It's going to throw the hearts off their game planning because you don't know which one to game plan for, which two to game plan for. And it's mentioned that the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, are waiting in the rings and in the wings, and they call them imposters. I thought that was hilarious for all the flack, obviously, the Demolition gets. I hate Crush. I hate it. I mean, I know that he, after the whole, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Bill Eadie shellfish allergy, and they were concerned over all that. But I just hate the fact that Crush is in here, and especially since he wasn't, the guy that won the tag team titles at WrestleMania 6, and just they kind of evolved from super over faces to now a 3-man heel team. Like, I don't know. I just thought this was the beginning of the end for Demolition.
Yeah, they changed a lot since WrestleMania 6. I mean, they were one of the high points. Usually at those WrestleManias, you pick out your top 3 or 4 big moments where the good guys won something, and they were that at WrestleMania 6 when they beat Haku and Andre for the tag titles. But it was weird just kind of how they added a member, and that just automatically made them heels. I just remember one week they had 3. Like, what the hell? There's a third Demolition guy walking out to the ring, and it was just they just decided to add a member, and they were already champions. So I don't know why storyline-wise they needed to add them. They just did, and they were bad guys suddenly out of it.
Yeah, and Crush is terrible. So then you get Mean Gene with the Hearts and Brett. I love it. Like, Brett just calling it like it is. He said it should be Axe and Smash. They're the originals, and that's who it should be defending it, and they're the most experienced and the best ones. And Anvil, confirms he's not paid to think. I thought that was a great line for him. And then at the end, Brett goes, yeah, and then we are going to be facing Axe and Crush. So he's still confused because it's Smash and Crush. So even though they told them who they were going to face, Bret Hart still doesn't know. So he is either just really confused or really dumb. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he doesn't face Axe and Crush. Well, he kind of does, but it's not. It's Smash and Crush, not Axe here. And we go to the match. So, man, this match, the crowd dug it. The crowd was super duper into this match, and it was a damn good one. So it's a 2 out of 3 falls match for the titles, and it's the debut of the Hart Foundation jackets on top of that, which would evolve a little bit but become very iconic, especially with Bret.
Yeah, and this was Bret Hart in a ponytail, which I can't recall that I've ever seen before or ever again at this point. They were trying out some new looks here for sure.
It's the pay-per-view ponytail, man. Yeah. So the first fall is pretty straightforward, good match, good back and forth. I mean, look, the Hart Foundation and Demolition are going to have a good match. They really are. Even with Crush, it's going to be straightforward. You're going to understand the roles. There's not going to be a lot of, foo-foo and flipping and flopping. I mean, it is going to be hard hitting, but it's going to be pretty crisp and it's good stuff. And the demos hit the decapitation on Bret for the first fall. So the Demolition is up 1-0. On the second fall, things get a little wonky on the finish for me. Now, you tell me if you disagree. So you get the near fall on the Anvil Power Slam, and then they go right into the Heart Attack and they hit it. Crush dives over and breaks up the pin and is DQ'd. Now, he breaks it up by hitting the ref, right? Like diving over and is kind of lightly grazing the ref, and he's immediately DQ'd. Why didn't he just the ref was further away than the actual combatants. Like, why didn't he just push, Hart or Neidhart, whoever was on top over? Like, to me, it was, I don't know if the positioning was wrong, but it looked like a pretty weak finish for a DQ to kind of DQ him on that. I mean, like I said, I didn't love it. I thought it was a little bit confusing because, they see broken up pins all the time, and we had to know that he, lightly grazed the referee. So I don't know. Didn't love the finish of fall 2.
Yeah, there's got maybe some Crush not being as much of a veteran as the other two guys, and his placement not knowing where to be at the right time. Timing issue probably there. But one of the bigger confusing things for me is that the rules kind of changed here on title changes during this match, because there was a infamous Saturday Night's Main Event match in 1987 where the Bulldogs and the Hart Foundation were wrestling, and the Bulldogs, I believe, got a DQ win just like this, and then the second fall. And in the third fall, they got a pin victory, but they did not win the titles due to the rule being that you had to win both falls by pinfall for the titles to change. And I remember Jesse gladly calling that out on commentary, like, oh, they may have won, but they didn't win the belts because they didn't win 2 falls. So here they just changed it and didn't really, mentioned that there was a rule change. So a little bit different for me from somebody coming from that era a little bit. But I did like the first fall because I felt like that could have been the end to any regular match. That could have just been the end to a one fall match, and it played out normally. Today you see a little weird, some weird stuff where it's like if there's an Iron Man match or a 2 out of 3 falls, you see like a pin or something out of nowhere that normally wouldn't be a pin. It feels like they just did this because it was a multiple pin match. Mm-hmm. But this one really felt like it could have been a legit end to the match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. You have to recover from taking the big finish and a brutal finish and stuff. So I like that component. So fall 3 gets a little wild and wacky, but all in a good way, I think, for the most part. So Axe comes down and he hides under the ring. So we have the third member of Demolition out there. And that, of course, prompts Piper and Vince to get into a big argument for way too long about if under the ring is technically ringside or not. So I like I said, arguing semantics here. I don't know if that's what they needed to do. But Anvil does he power slams Hart onto Smash. I thought that was an interesting maneuver there where he actually power slams his own opponent onto somebody. Axe sneaks in and then immediately takes over, and the ref cannot tell Bill Eadie apart from Smash or Crush, whichever one at this point. I mean, look, yes, they have paint and they're the same gear, but their paint jobs are different. Their hair is different. They're different sizes. Like this, I think, is a little too much in the realm of suspension of disbelief. I don't think he looks close enough to pull that trick off.
No, this was the referee looking right in his face directly. I mean, it's like, you don't know that that's Axe. I mean, this would have worked with masks. If they had their masks that they debuted a few months later, this would have worked. Or if it had worked in a situation where Axe just rolls in and gets a pin with his head down, would have worked the same way. But they were just blatantly like in their face, like, well, here's Axe in the ring now. I mean, any fan can tell, but the referees with these guys supposedly on all these shows can't tell the difference. A little bit of a stretch.
100%. But there's some good stuff. Anvil breaks up a pin, but no DQ. See, he's a lot smarter than Crush because he broke it up the right way. There was some double teaming on the outside with Axe and Smash. Good stuff. I think it would have been sucked to be the ref in this one. There's a lot of moving parts here. And then a huge pop because the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, come to the ring and they pull Axe back out from he went back under the ring, by the way, pulled him out, and Hawk knocks Crush off the top rope and he falls down like a goof. We get a slingshot shoulder block from Anvil to Crush. He trips over Hart, who's down on all fours, and the Harts get the win and the World Tag Team titles in 14 minutes and 24 seconds, and Meltzer gives it 3.5 stars. The crowd dug it. What say you, Donnie?
I liked it. I mean, back then, of course, you cheer for the good guys to win, and the Hart Foundation did that. Looking back now, it's interesting to look at to see if it was the right move or not, because you gave away the Road Warriors versus Demolition for the tag titles feud. That kind of did away with that. Although you did get the unexpected win if you were one of the experts who thought you saw where this was going again, and the Demolition LOD feud was where it was going. No chance for the Hart Foundation to win. Then they do win. Or you can look at it like they took the belts and made actually 2 separate bigger events out of it, since you still had Demolition and Legion of Doom to feud, and then you had the Hart Foundation to go on and have title feuds with other teams. So a lot of ways to look at this. I mean, if you have to think that much about it, they're probably doing something right.
Absolutely. I don't mind it, but either way would have been the right direction, right? I think they could have done either way. Obviously, we don't get the LOD Demolition feud that we deserved after this. Unfortunately, that would have been great. And it would have been great if it was Axe and Smash and not freaking Crush. But I think it gets even better, though, when Gene interviews the Legion of Doom in the locker room right after this. And Gene almost gets decapitated by Animal's spike. Did you see that when he turned the shoulder pad and almost poked his eyeball out?
I didn't catch that. I was more thinking about the fact that they put the spikes back on. Oh, yeah. I was like, they had taken them off at ringside. Why the hell are the spikes back on for an interview backstage?
You never know if Mean Gene's going to get rowdy, man. You gotta.
It's a continuing theme throughout the night. It's like guys are wearing different stuff immediately after their matches. I guess they just, I don't know, tape beforehand, or maybe they just wanted us to think they were, this is just what they did in their post-match rituals.
Yeah, I think they probably didn't. They needed a kind of a continuity quality assurance supervisor there to make sure that when they were filming things hours before that, it would look good when it aired after it. But yeah, 100%. But the Hearts come in and celebrate. And but at the end of the day, like, I don't know, it's the positioning or just how much bigger Hawk and Animal are. But in this segment, even though the Hearts come in with the tag titles, the Legion of Doom are the stars here, and it's very noticeable, and it looks like they're in a different echelon than the Hearts, and it comes across in this interview.
yeah, I think for the next year they became like right up there in the marketing area with Hogan and Warrior. It's like, this is our marketable tag team. There was a big rush of merchandise and action figures that was coming up right here, a big boost from what I had seen previous years when I seen they couldn't find enough merchandise, but WWF really hit it big with it, and Legion of Doom was a huge part of that. And yeah, I mean, surprising this extended their own title win by a year. So I was surprised see them have a run before they got the tag titles of a year.
Yeah, and I always wore my styrofoam Road Warriors shoulder pads that I got at a WWF house show around this time. So yeah, I dug it.
Hot sellers.
Hot sellers.